I am so happy to be here. I am a grateful student of Dr. Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis, Ernest Holmes, Emma Curtis Hopkins, and many other metaphysical teachers. I actually didn't plan on traveling around the world speaking and teaching about spiritual principles. I use them, but I didn't plan on speaking and teaching about them. And that actually started because I was asked, I believe in tithing, I believe in giving to where I'm spiritually fed. And I was asked by our Dr. Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis, what are you doing? Because you're giving a lot of money to our center, and I'm really grateful. What are you doing? And I looked at her and said, well, I'm doing what you taught me to do. Is that wrong? And she said, no, you're doing something different, because I teach this to thousands of people, and they're not having this kind of giving. What are you doing? And I said, well, I'm a self-proclaimed efficiency expert, so I've taken spiritual principles and narrowed it down into a very, very simple, easy-to-use practice that I use every day. And she said, would you teach that? Would you come into our center and teach it? So I did. And about the 500th person that had gone through the class, and yay, I'm so excited because I'm getting good results, asked me to please write a book, because the book includes a whole bunch of stories. And the workbook that comes with the workshop doesn't have the stories, it just has the how-to. So I decided, okay, I'll go ahead and write a book. And I have now gone all over to centers from coast to coast, and I'm going next week to Hawaii to a Unity church there. And I'm so excited because I get a chance now to see so many beautiful faces of God everywhere that I travel. And I get to share what you already know. I just help you to remember it. That's all I'm doing. You already know all this stuff. This just happens to be another how-to. And what I love about Centers for Spiritual Living and metaphysical teachings is that we get an opportunity to try stuff on. There's so many wonderful wise sages and teachers all over our entire movement, and we get to try stuff on and see what fits and what works for us. So this is just another technique that I teach of stuff you already know. But perhaps, because it's written in such a way that makes it really easy to do, you don't even have to believe it, you just have to do it, that it does have some effect. Why? Because we live in a universe that has cause and effect, right? So we just tap into that power. When I was 18, I graduated from high school, and my mother decided to give me a book that was published in 1925 by a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn called The Game of Life. Anybody have that? Now, my mother was raised Seventh-day Adventist. And then she converted in her 20s to Catholicism. She was a devout Catholic. But she decided that her little 18-year-old daughter needed to have this book. And I tell you, I have been practicing for 34 years those wonderful spiritual principles with huge success. But I just modified it and decided to go ahead and use them for business as well. So the title of my talk today is Partnering with the Chief Spiritual Officer for Success and Freedom. You're probably wondering, what's a Chief Spiritual Officer? Well, for me, it's that characteristic of spirit that guides and directs me with really powerful advice to achieve my goals and to keep me safe. So it's my advisor. As a CEO of companies, I surround myself in my C-suite with people whose advice I value. So I have my chief financial officer that advises us on the financial health of our company, my chief information officer that describes what we need technically to keep our company, operating at optimal levels, my chief operations officer, and the list goes on. So I have a C-suite, and I decided that I would bring spirit into my C-suite. So I gave it the title Chief Spiritual Officer, or CSO. But in fact, what I did was I put it at the top of my org chart. So it was the CSO, and then me as the CEO, and then everybody else. Well, you can imagine what my employees said. They're like, who's the CSO? Is it a man or a woman? Do we get to meet them? And I said, for you, the CSO is a guiding principle. Because with the CSO involved in our company, we are going to be a miracle-making company. We're going to have so many things happen that don't make sense, that are for our good, that miracles are going to turn into typicals. Things that just seem so far out of your imagination are going to happen for our company. And they did. And they did. But in addition to CSO helping us in business, it also helps in lots of different areas. In 1994, the CSO actually saved my life. I had been in a business meeting, and I got this flash or this picture of my sister's face in my mind's eye. Does anybody get like a thought that just pops into your mind? It's really strong, right? It's kind of an intuitive hit. Well, I got this picture of my sister that popped into my mind's eye. And what I knew, because I'd been practicing this a while, was that meant I needed to contact my sister. Well, I happened to be pretty close to her office, so I just showed up. Oh, she was so happy. She had a computer problem. I could fix it for free. So as I'm sitting there trying to fix her computer problem for her, she noticed this little tiny spot on the outside of my right leg. And she said, "What is that?" Well, you heard in the introduction that I was raised in Hawaii, and I'm fair, which means I have a lot of freckles. So I told her it was a freckle. She said she didn't feel that it was a freckle. And just as I was about to dismiss her fear, my gut wrenched. Anybody ever feel like a pain or something in your gut? Yeah, I felt that. And because I had been in this relationship with my spiritual partner for a while, I knew that meant just go ahead and take her advice. So she advised me to contact her dermatologist, and I did. And I went to the dermatologist, and he said, "It's nothing. Nothing to worry about. Don't worry, it's too small." Well, I was raised by a father who's a surgeon. And surgeons consider themselves just about right on the level of God. I was trained not to question a doctor's advice. But again, my gut wrenched. And I said, "I'm so sorry, doctor, but I really don't mean to be disrespectful, but you need to take that off. You need to cut it out." So he barely was able to get one stitch in. It was that small. I came back a week later to a diagnosis of malignant melanoma, Clark's level 3. The CSO saved my life. How many of you know people or have had an experience yourself of really wonderful healing because you know that the power of Spirit is working through you? Right. We have that one down. It's like me with Excel spreadsheets on my computer. I got that down. But I don't know this other program called Access. I kind of don't know it really well, and so I don't trust it. And I think that's what happens sometimes with our use of spiritual power. We got healing down. You need healing? I can pray for you. I know you are the perfection of God, and every cell in your body is filled with healed light. But money and business and finances, it's kind of like that Access program. We just don't have that one down yet. Just haven't been using this enough. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that do. And what they do is they call this messaging that they get, this gut instinct, this flash of a picture, they call it intuition. And source is simply the source of intuition. Bill Gates said that often you have to rely on intuition. And Steve Jobs agreed when he said that you actually have to have courage. You have to have courage to follow your heart and intuition. And Oprah Winfrey has said that she has listened to that still small voice of intuition her entire life. And the only times that she's made mistakes, when she didn't listen. So if Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, myself, all say that intuition is a success tool, why aren't we all using it? Why aren't we all using it? Well, I think it's because we're not taught to really trust that unseen message. We also live in a world of data. Oh my gosh, how many of you have smartphones? Right? Okay, so what happens? Oh my gosh, I have a question about something. Google. Oh, and then we have to talk to our friends. What do you think? And then we have to measure it, analyze it, figure it out, decide whether or not there's enough support information to make it, have merit, and then we make a decision. This means yes, May. Everybody's done that? Yeah, of course. But Albert Einstein said that actually the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. And the rational mind is a faithful servant. So the rational mind does whatever we give it instructions to do. But somehow we've created this society that honors the servant or this rational mind and has forgotten the gift. So what I'm here today to do, not only with the service talk, but also with the workshop, is to help you to remember the gift. As I mentioned, in our company, with the CSO at the top, we really did have miracles happen. I now understand how those sacred texts that talked about Red Seas parting and water coming out of rocks and food falling from heaven, how that happened. As soon as we got out of the way and allowed Spirit to work, miracles happen. Stuff beyond our imagination happens. So we're going to go over just 3 areas that talk about how you can enable intuition and your subconscious to show up more often in more obvious ways to achieve your goals. Okay, does everybody have one of the handouts? Okay, so the first point is to recognize that intuition, the source of intuition, wants you to achieve anything that you want and to keep you safe. It wants to help you achieve your goals and to keep you safe. But it stands to reason that in order to make that true, you actually have to have some goals. All right? And you have to have goals that it can give you advice on. So if your goals are too vague, it's not going to be able to give you advice. So recognize that. The second point is that you can commit to partner with Spirit to be your most valued advisor. Now, let me point out here that even though I'm talking about partnership, that does not mean separation. There is only one, right? There is no separation. But we do name different characteristics of Spirit. We name it love, divine intelligence, truth, power. So that characteristic of Spirit that guides you and directs you towards your goals and to keep you safe, give it a name. I call mine the Chief Spiritual Officer. I have some people that call it God. Spirit, divine intelligence, all-knowing universal power. There are some that call it Fred. I don't know why. But Fred apparently represents an idea of a most trusted advisor. So there's a place on your sheet for you to write down, what you would like to call that characteristic of Spirit that's going to guide you and direct you. And in this partnership, there are clear roles and responsibilities that you both will follow. How many of you have ever worked for a living? Okay, so you were hired or you're part of a particular company because you have unique gifts and talents. You have something that you offer that's very valuable to that company. Would you ever walk into somebody else's office or cube or area of the company and start doing their job for them? No. So why do we keep trying to do God's job? Your job is to figure out what it is that you want, or as Emma Curtis Hopkins calls it, your good. You figure out what your good is. And with gratitude, be thankful for it as though you already received it. And let me give you an example. How many of you heard someone say, I'd like to lose 10 pounds? Right? I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, so their goal is, I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, to make that statement true, the goal is to be wanting to lose 10 pounds. To make that statement true, to be wanting to lose, you always have to be 10 pounds overweight. Sorry. Same thing, I want to be debt-free. You always have to be in debt. So a better way to word that would be, I am so grateful that I am physically fit and trim and toned and energetic in a pain-free body that's easily able to go on walks and hikes with my family and friends, and we have such a great time. See the difference? Now your subconscious and your spiritual partner can kick in and show you possibilities to make that statement true. Okay? So your job is to figure out what it is that your good is. What do you want? And describe it with gratitude as though you've already achieved it. The CSO's job is to create the path. All right, it's a confession time. How many of you out there are overachievers? Okay? You make a goal, and then you figure out every single step that it takes to get there. Right? Yeah? Don't do that. It's not your job. It's not your job. Here's our problem. Because our rational mind wants so badly to take over, when we get an intuitive hit that doesn't make sense, our rational mind is trying to talk us out of it. It doesn't make sense. Oh, that's a waste of time. What are you talking about? No, you're not allowed to do that anymore. What happens is Spirit gives you the path and gives you one step to take at a time. Kind of like the picture of my sister's face in my mind's eye. I did not know what goal that was a step towards. My goals at the time were in all of the major areas of my life. I had a goal for finances and business. I had a goal for health. I had a goal for right relationships, harmonious relationships. I didn't know that when her face showed up and I took the step to contact her, I didn't know what goal that was for. Well, for overachievers, that drives us nuts. We want to know, but that's not how this practice works. Your job is just to figure out what it is that you want and be grateful for it. Spirit's job is to create the path and give you one step to take at a time. You either take the step or just ask for another lead. It goes like this. CSO, I don't know if that's from you. If it is, give me another lead. Show me another sign. It's that simple. How many of you have actually ever done that? God, I need another sign, right? And sometimes when we forget to ask God for another sign, we get a 2x4 upside the head. Yeah, right. And that's when it's really important. But what if we could use this as just a normal daily part? We didn't have to wait until something was really important. We were watching for leads all day long and got them. Wouldn't that be fun? Makes it kind of a game, doesn't it? Let me give you an example. I travel about 150,000 miles a year, domestic. And in my last company, I had a very large customer in Cleveland. It was Cleveland Clinic Health System. And I was there, and I fly into a city, and I get my rental car, and I drive to my hotel, and then I go to the closest grocery store to pick up water and supplies for my stay. So I got in my car to go to the grocery store, and all of a sudden I had this very strong thought to go to a grocery store that's 15 minutes away. So here comes the rational mind. May, it's 9 o'clock at night. You know where the 5-minute away grocery store is. Why would you drive an extra 10 minutes each way out of your way? Your appointment is at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's 5 o'clock in the morning, Seattle time. Why do you waste 20 more minutes? Wah, 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 wah. Can anybody identify with that? Yeah. So what you do is you stop. CSO, if this is from you, I need another lead. Well, now this intuitive mind kicks in. Well, maybe everything you need will be on sale. Maybe it won't be a wasted drive. You're wired anyway. It's 6 o'clock in the evening in Seattle. You can't go to sleep right now anyway. Why don't you just make the drive? What's the harm? So I made the drive. I parked my car, and as I'm walking into the grocery store, who should be walking out at exactly the same time? A potential customer that I met 6 months before at a trade show, who I had been calling for an appointment and hadn't returned any of my calls. Hi, so nice to see you. Now, one of my goals that I've been writing out every single day in my CSO meeting was I'm so grateful that our company now receives a minimum of $400,000 in revenues for this particular period. Every day, writing it out, as well as all my other goals. So we're having this conversation, and I'm asked, how long am I in town? And I'm thinking to myself, well, as long as it takes to get an appointment with you. So I'm invited to come make a presentation, which turned into another presentation, which turned into another one, and finally we got a contract worth over $500,000 within the period of time that I wanted it. Okay, now how many of you that are skilled at attaining goals would think that driving to a grocery store that's 15 minutes away, 9 o'clock at night in Cleveland, would help you achieve your goal? Does that sound like Red Seas parting, water coming out of rocks, food falling from heaven, beyond your imagination? This is how this works. It is so much fun. I love hearing the stories of people having these miracle experiences, but they're going to happen so often for you that they just turn into typicals. Miracles turn into typicals. Okay? So again, your job is to figure out what it is that you want. Describe it with gratitude as though you already have it. Spirit's job is to give you the path and one step to take at a time to get to your goal. All right? Good. So then the third part is that you have to be in relationship with your spiritual partner, which means you have to spend time together. How many of you have ever heard the phone ring and you knew who it was calling? Okay? Chances are when that happened, you actually knew that person pretty well. You know, we're all connected. But you have a relationship. And the same is true with this partnership. You need to spend time together every day. And we don't have enough time to go over the 7 steps that I teach in the book. It's a little half-an-hour practice every morning and then fun all day long. But the idea of spending time every day so that you can cultivate this relationship is really, really important. Let me ask you a question. If Bill Gates called you up today, you all know who Bill Gates is, right? I think he topped Forbes right now for the wealthiest man in the world. If he called you up and said, okay, here's the deal. You tell me, every day we're going to meet for a half an hour. You tell me what it is that you want and really describe it as though you've already achieved it. I will then give you advice all day long to take steps to get to your goal. Fair enough? Would you meet with me every day? Well, here's a really interesting secret. God made Bill Gates too. And knows a lot more than he knows. So why wouldn't you want a partner with the all-knowing, infinite intelligence who actually takes great delight in coming up with these paths to get you to your goal that are beyond your imagination if you just agree to get out of the way? Just agree to get out of the way. Now, one thing I can tell you is that there is a way to jumpstart your good as well. And I know you're in a prosperity series, and I often go to different centers where they're doing campaigns and raising, getting their pledges from their congregation. And I'm often asked by people, well, how do you give when you don't have enough already, or you just barely pay your bills now? And that's an interesting question, because how do you happen to find the money? And my advice is simply that let that be God's job. Let that be God's job. For those of you that are regular givers, you know that you cannot outgive God. I keep trying. It's impossible. It doesn't work. I mean, I went through this stage. One of the people that took my workshop went through it as well. He was barely making it from paycheck to paycheck, and he said, I don't have that trust yet. I'm scared. So we started him out on making a commitment. He gave, $5. And he said, I'm making a commitment, God, that anything that I get that's over and above my normal income, I will tithe 10% on that. So the first week, he found $50 and he tithed $5. And the next week, he was going on a walk with his dog. They go on the same walk every single day. But his dog pulled him off on this other trail. And as he's walking along, he found a roll of money with a rubber band around it. It's like $320, $327, something like that. And he picked it up and he was like, oh my gosh, somebody lost this. So he waited there with his dog for an hour just in case somebody would come back for it. And nobody came back. He went to the trailhead of the park. Nobody was around looking for their money. So he just looked up and said, thank you. And he gave $32.70 or what have you for his tithing. And after several months, he realized that he could trust in this principle. He could give and receive even more back. It just worked. No matter what you feel about it, it doesn't matter. It just works. It's an actual universal law. So he got a little more trust, and he decided to start giving on his on his after tax paycheck plus unexpected income. And then after a few months, he trusted that, and he started giving on his gross and unexpected income. And now he's giving on what he wants to be making in the future. So it takes a process to build up this relationship of trust. There's some proof that's involved, and there are lots of sacred texts that will tell you it's okay to prove. It's okay to prove God. I hope that you commit. I really do. I hope that you commit to this new partnership with whatever you call the CSO. And if you'd like to actually try out a practice, in the workshop, it's very experiential. You're going to get a chance to do some exercises and actually test all this out so that you've got a good start and you've got a solid basis for making this work. May you be blessed. May you be prospered. May you be healthy and happy in every way. Thank you very, very much for having me.